If demand is slowing, ports are fluid, capacity is available, where is the urgency to invest in management tech?
So I think the answer to that really depends on who the end customer is. So at Gnosis, we serve a variety of different customers across the industry. Our core customer is the cargo owner themselves, but we also work with the dray carriers and the freight forwarders and the LSPs who really are hit by that softening demand. So just taking the LSPs and that part of our customer segment first, really where Gnosis can fit in is one, saving them time, but two, really benefiting that customer experience that they can provide to their customers, where they can create reports, they can send them complete, accurate, low latency data, and then also mitigate costs on their side of avoiding demurrage and detention. From a cargo owner perspective, it really, again, is also on the cost mitigation side, where with tariffs and other headwinds coming at them from a financial perspective, they're looking to figure out how they can save money and how they can get their goods faster to the warehouse to then get those goods off their books. So all of it has an underlying kind of thread of visibility data and how do we use that data, and then it certainly changes as the market changes and who the customers are.
When we look at the driving factors in investment for 2026, what would you say has been the biggest change to the approach?
So I think with all the advancements in tech and all of the latest and greatest, dare I say, AI and ML and all that out there, is people are starting to position themselves of, hey, when the recovery does come, are we going to be in a stance to go and be proactive in how we move our company forward? Or are we going to kind of feel like we're playing catch up? So I see that while people are still cautious about what they're going to be investing in, a lot are doing their homework as to when the time comes, when the sunnier days arrive, what am I going to spend my time investing in and implementing and driving real impact to my company?
What's your advice on navigating tech overload? You used the phrase going from tech blindness to dizzy, feeling dizzy from all of the tech around. What do you tell people when they're just wondering, how do I navigate this?
So just adding tech to a business is not a solution. It requires a lot of thought, it requires a lot of diligence and accuracy, especially from a data perspective. So when our customers want us to track their containers, 80% tracking is not good enough. It has to be 99.9 or better. I think of the Six Sigma methodology of a lot of things like flying airplanes or creating pharmaceutical drugs. I think visibility data falls in that same category where the data needs to be 99.99+%. Otherwise, it's just going to be another tool that you have in your tech spend. And for people to actually rely upon the data and go from being, let's call it blind because they don't have the data, to actually being able to see and not just some sort of somewhat worse middle ground of just being dizzy where you have about 80%, 85% accuracy, completeness, latency, etc. You really have to have a concerted effort and pick the right partner to do that. And that's where we want to take our customers, is not just have visibility data, not just have an ETA, but be able to use that data and then answer business-related questions beyond when is that container arriving? Maybe how many people do I need to staff at the warehouse, or which drayage carrier should I allocate this container to? So those kind of more business-oriented related questions need answers than just what's the ETA.
When we're talking about tech, I think it's really helpful to have a concrete example that shows exactly what the impact is. Do you have a case study that you could point to just to illustrate what Gnosis Freight really is doing on the ground?
Honestly, I view all of our customers as an individual case study where each have their own similarities, but more importantly, they have their own differences. And I think when I think about our customer base and how we go about interacting with our customers, we take the approach of we want to be as close to them as possible. We want to work as closely with them as possible to tailor our solutions to them. So an example of this is I work with a lot of tire companies, and a lot of these tire companies import 20,000 or more containers. A lot of them are their own manufacturers, and they manufacture the tires, they ship them over to the US and Canada. And on the surface, one might think that those two companies have a lot in common. But even in the tire industry, there's the OEMs who are the kind of tier one tire that are going to the plants, going to the Tesla plants, the Honda plants, where they're objective is to not cause a plant shutdown. It's like, I need to get these tires to this plant, otherwise the plant's going to shut down and it's going to be my fault, and that's not good for my business. And then there's these other manufacturers where they really serve the aftermarket industry, or really the consumer aftermarket, and where they're shipping to is actually the tire stores, the tire retailers, and their goal is not really to necessarily be late, but it's like they want to provide an enhanced customer experience to those retailers and say, hey, when are your tires going to arrive? And this is why you should buy more tires from me, because you're not going to run out of tires on the shelves. So while it's two similar businesses, it's two totally different business models, and then having the ability to tailor the solution and the underlying data model to the customer at hand is really what we deem important here at Gnosis. And to do that, you have to work very closely with them, which is why we have solutions engineers that work hand in glove with our customers on a daily basis.
The idea of tailoring solutions, can you talk a little bit more about how that works on the ground?
When it comes to tailoring solutions, the way we do it with our customers is that we work very closely with them, not just during onboarding, but throughout the entire life cycle or lifetime with Gnosis that they have. So what we do is we deploy 2 different engineers to be on their account. One of which is a forward deployed solutions engineer, as we call it, and then one is more of a data-oriented engineer, where they're responsible for tracking our customers' containers and associating different reference points to that container so they know what warehouse is it going to, et cetera. But really what we do from there is work closely with the customer to say, hey, what insights are you looking to have? But really more importantly, how do you want to use this data? We don't want you to just see the data and see how many containers are arriving at port next week. What we want you to be able to do is say, hey, these are my drayage carriers. This is how I like my drayage allocated to these carriers. Can Gnosis understand what containers are going to arrive this week, who should be allocated that load, and then send the delivery order? And that's exactly what we do in our drayage management suite. But also using the data from a retrospective perspective, where I got this freight invoice, can you tell me if it's correct or not? Because really what we find is that 85% of inaccuracies on a freight invoice are due to the underlying milestones being incorrect, as opposed to just the invoicer applying the wrong contract to it. It's really, hey, this one actually outgated on the 21st, not the 20th, so I should only have 5 days of detention billed, as opposed to it being like, oh no, it shouldn't be $250, it's $200. That's usually not the issue. It's what is the underlying milestone, and then Gnosis is in the perfect position to actually audit against that, because we already track all their containers and have their contracts for those containers.
What's the most misunderstood element of what Gnosis brings to the market?
I'd say that the most misunderstood thing about Gnosis is that we're a visibility company, and we've never had any intention to be a visibility company. When you go back to the origin of Gnosis, what we really did initially was build solutions off of visibility data. But what we learned pretty quickly was that if that data is not 99.99, as we mentioned, % complete, accurate, and low latency, then that data, you can't really build real solutions off of it. So then we had to kind of backtrack, do all the legwork that is very tough to actually become a data provider, build our own data model, to then go back to building tailored solutions for our customers using that data. Now, everyone kind of knows us for our data, and we have a lot of different partnerships out there with drayage carriers, forwarders, even steamship lines now, and facilitating demurrage payments with the container payment portal. So, we have data everywhere, and we're continuing to further our data model, but it's all within the lens of how can we build solutions for our customers, especially the cargo owners, that they can then utilize that data in their day-to-day job and not have to leave Gnosis to do their job.
Nick, thanks so much for sitting down to talk to me today.
Thanks for having me, Allie. It was a pleasure.